Hey guys! Today is a very, very special day. You may notice something. What's that over there? Well, if I go this way, do you recognize this? You see, I had an omen today. Too many things have happened this fine morning for me to ignore this sign. So it's raining, it's absolutely horrible weather, and I am, for the first time ever, trying out filming a video while I'm actually walking from the gym to my office. Why am I doing this, might you ask? Well, because today is a special day. It started out as one of those weird days where, you know, everything feels off. I looked in the mirror, I wasn't as pretty as I'd like to be, so I tried my hand at crawling. I'm learning how to crawl, swimming and stuff like that. I've dared myself into the cool pool where all these fast swimmers are. It worked out pretty well for my first attempt, actually. And on top of that, last night my boss contacts me and says that we're going to celebrate today because we signed a major contract. Like major contract, so things are going well there. And tomorrow I'm gonna get to see Alan and Mark for an after work. And if you follow this channel, you know that Alan and Mark are like my two of the developers I look up to the most. So let's see how this works out, because there's a bunch of people now staring at me. I suppose that I suppose that now I kind of just have to pretend like I'm one of those pretty girls with the selfie stick, because this is how they must feel absolutely all the time. But enough about me, let's talk about code. So, coding. Now, one of the things that happened not that long ago, it was kind of interesting. A friend of mine started talking to me about inconsistencies. So basically, for the longest time, our code base has been written in an ES6 style way, and which is great. But it happened before the AsyncAwait interface came into the standard, basically. And what's interesting about that is that you kind of get into a discussion now. At least my friend came into a discussion with me about it. Like, should we migrate to AsyncAwait? And I said, yeah, that's great. And now my other friend comes in and says, well, should we really? I mean, it's going to create all of this inconsistency in the code base. And I have to agree. I told them, like, yeah, this is absolutely true. This will create a large amount of, over time you're going to get inconsistencies. Like, it might start off like it's inconsistent in a few places, but as you go, as you progress through this, you're going to get, like, some places you use .then, .catch and so forth, and some places you use AsyncAwait. And he kind of went, I don't really like that. And I went, why? Why don't you like that? What's the problem? And he said, well, it's inconsistent. It's like, I like this, you know that old rule where they say that a code base that is good and well maintained should look as if just one person has written everything. And I say, yeah, this is true. But what's the value in that? And he kind of went, well, because it's nice that it is consistent. And I go, yeah, but what's the value? And he couldn't really answer me. And if you think about it, like, this is my argument about this. What does it matter if this thing that in his head, this is inconsistent? But what's the difference between using AsyncAwait and using, it's the same discussion as should you use a for loop, a while loop, or a for each loop? What does it matter? It's almost completely the discussion isn't really, it doesn't really bring any value. In my personal opinion, the thing that is going to factor in is whether or not the code is good, is it comprehensible to everybody who is working on the project. That the fact that one person has written a for loop or for each loop, it doesn't really matter. Or if you use .map, .for each, like, there's all kinds of ways that styles, if you will, which you could use to apply a looping structure, for example. But we don't discuss that. Like, my colleague we don't really talk about that. And this is kind of what I was trying to tell him, that the idea that inconsistencies and like this sort of thing matters is actually completely false. If absolutely, like if you have vastly different coding styles, it's like, I mean, you have to kind of be pragmatic about this thing. I'm not saying that, all right, one part of the code base should be in Python and the other part of the code should be in PHP. That doesn't, like, that's not what, like, that's an extreme case, of course, but what I was trying to convince him was that AsyncAwait, like, we can discuss whether or not it brings value to the code to have AsyncAwait. Some people argue that it makes it easier to code and more comprehensible. I am not, like, I don't have a strong opinion on that. The discussion was originally was whether or not we should adopt those practices. And on the whole, I think that it makes, for me, it makes sense to adhere to the new standards and kind of be progressive and adopt these new interfaces as they come along to just keep yourself relevant. It's not a hard requirement, and I told my coworker that as well. Like, for me, it doesn't matter if we use .then or we use an AsyncAwait pattern. I don't care at all. What I care about is that your argument is that this inconsistency is the problem, because it's not in my opinion. And I don't know about you guys, but the reason why I have this opinion is because if you think about it, there is no such thing as a completely consistent code base. At the end of the day, this idea that it should look that that the code was written by one single person, it's completely false. Because, as I said, even at deciding between a for each and a for loop is going to be considered an inconsistency depending on how you look at it. So for me, the important part is not whether or not somebody uses a .for each or a .map, or if, like, what they use in order to get the job done. The thing that matters is, does the code work, and is it easy and comprehensible to everybody who's working on the project? Those are the main things. Have a great day.